And I'm pleased to welcome back to the stage Iris Kaltenbäck. And Nicholas Elliott for help with translation. Iris, thank you so much for being here with the film. Rewatching it, I'm just fascinated anew by the character of Lydia and your approach to drawing her out and telling her story. She's quite a mysterious character, in some ways an enigma, who's closed off to the world. And I'm curious about your decision to build a story around such a character. A character who's in many ways seems impossible to know.
Yeah, actually the mystery was really important to me, and to keep the mystery of the character was something that I really wanted, because I love movies where I'm not so close to the character, where I follow the character, but I still have a form of question about the character. And also it was important to me because this Lydia was a mystery to me, and I felt like I was shooting the movie like an investigation about this character. And this is also why I wanted to have the voiceover, Milos voiceover, who was asking himself questions with me and closer to my point of view. And I had this reference of Millennium Mambo from of Hu Tiaotian, sorry for the where I watched this movie like so many times when I was a teenager, and I remember being fascinated by the fact that I could never completely grasp or understand fully this woman, and in the same time that's what made me come back to the movie all the time. And so, yeah, I wanted to accept that and not to try to explain what I couldn't explain. That was very important, and to me that's cinematographic in a way.
Could you speak about Hafsia Herzi and how, at what point in the process you identified her as the actress to play Lydia, and how you worked with her to build this sort of opaque and yet compelling performance?
So I started working with Hafsia quite late, actually. I mean, the script was fully written. I hadn't anyone in mind when I was writing the script. And in this, when we thought with the casting director about Hafsia, it made sense because actually she has exactly this mystery that, you know, even in life, it's hard to get close to Hafsia. Even when you see her every day, you talk to her, there is always this this sort of I don't know, this distance, you know. So I sent her the script, and what was very beautiful is she read it, which is really rare. I mean, in France at least, she read it in a few hours, and the next day she called me. We didn't know each other, and I remember starting to want to tell her a lot about the character, and she stopped me and she said, I remember she said, I don't want to hear all that. I completely understand this woman, and because it could have been me. That was very strange. And she was, she was during the whole shooting. It was actually amazing because even when I would sometimes, for a second, feel weak and maybe moralize or feel guilty about the story or something, she would always stand very. She would stand strongly next to the character and say, "No, I completely understand her. She does this because that," and that was really helpful. And so I felt that the whole shooting was about always investigate. I felt like we were both investigating all the time this character, but very precisely. Like it was we would like ask ourselves all the time, how does she feel in this very small scene. It was always detail by detail and scene after scene, like, you know, very how do you say banal, very banal way, like every day, like thinking about her everyday life and each very small step that would lead to her taking the baby and then going to Normandy and everything, and that was very helpful. And she had this very factual approach, and also I mean, that was the main work. And also what we would do is with Hafsia, I would always give her the first take completely free because she has a beautiful instinct, and then I would really try to push her to take some risk, to go in the complete other direction. But what I would always tell her is, don't worry, you'll have the last one free. And what was very beautiful is that the first take and the last take would never be the same, and were very different because we had done all this how do you say this, ce chemin, this path together. Yeah, exactly. So sorry. So yeah, it was yeah.
I'm also curious if you could speak a bit more about your influences, your inspirations. In your introduction, you mentioned strains of American cinema, also Millennium Mambo. It's a difficult film to classify in terms of genre, but there's certainly a character study element to it, but it's almost an anti-character study because there's so much that we don't manage to access. But there's also elements of a suspense drama, sort of almost a thriller pacing. So how did you think about that as you were composing the screenplay?
Yeah, I wanted a film that was at the crossroad of different genres, and I know that from one side, I've been very inspired by American filmmaking in the 70s, like, of course, one of the biggest, Taxi Driver, or The Panic in Needle Park, where they have these. What I love in this period of cinema is how they manage to have a very documented approach to some characters, to some, you know, some work. How do you to a. I mean, like, about it, how Scorsese can, like, talk about a taxi driver, how sorry, I forgot the name of the other director, can go into the life of two junkies, and in the same time, I feel like they have a lot of freedom in the cinematic approach, in the way they're. It's very novel-like. It's not like naturalistic. I don't know if it's very clear. So this I really loved from this period of filmmaking, and in the same time, I've been watching, like, Hitchcock's movies since I was really a kid, and I've been traumatized by them, to be honest. So I thought a lot. I mean, about him and about his films, about Marnie, about so many of his movies, and I think I've digested this, and I did want to have a thriller aspect with the voiceover, and that you can find as well in Truffaut's movie, to mention at least one French person. And what else? And then there's the Chinese and Taiwanese films that I love. I've been telling about Hu Tiaotian, and there's another movie, Yi Yi, from Edward Young, which is one of my favorite movies. And from them, I think I was looking into how to. I feel like, for example, these two movies really tell you about loneliness in the city, and they don't need to tell you about it because they film it so well. They put their characters. I mean, in Yi, I really have some shots in mind where you see the characters are completely almost swallowed by the city, and in the same time they're so present that yeah, I think that's something that stuck with me. Yeah.
And then there's the excerpt from Betty Gordon's Variety also in the film.
Yes, Variety. I'm sorry. Yeah, definitely. I've seen this movie a few years ago, and it was an important. I remember seeing it in a French cinema, and it was an important moment because it was kind of the feminine aspect and version of some other movies that were like I don't know. Yeah, it's important. Yeah.
Something I appreciate about the film is the sort of ambiguity regarding the question of mental health, and it seems that you kind of pointedly leave it an inconclusive question at the end in the voiceover. You know, there's no attempt to diagnose Lydia. Instead, you just see the way in which her mental and emotional states play out across her friendship with Salomé, her relationship with Milos, her relationship with Esme, you know, this sort of mother relationship. Could you talk about the decision to wrestle with this picture of mental health without diagnosing or pathologizing in any concrete way?
Yeah, actually, it was very important to me not to give an answer, but in the same time to talk about it, because before making films, I worked with a criminal lawyer, and I've been to a lot of criminal trials, and this question of mental health was often very important in those trials, and I remember in the same time feeling like at some point we would forget or lose the voice of the person who was being trialed. No, you don't say trialed. Tried? Okay. And so I remember thinking, and there was all these experts like talking about, no, she's crazy, no, she's not crazy, and she's guilty, and you know, and she's just she's just manipulating, and you know, you had all these versions, and at some point, I felt like we were losing her voice, and I thought maybe with filmmaking we can approach her very differently through fiction, but this way we can also feel with her. Instead of trying to explain anything, maybe we can just be in the moment with her and try to understand in a more intuitive way, with film, with images, with sound, with an actress like Hafsia, and so it was a way for me to conclude with this expertise and everything, and in the same time, I think we took another path. I don't know if it's very clear, but yeah, okay.
Absolutely. The last thing I'll ask before opening it up to the audience is about the red jacket, which is so striking. And as you can see, I love red. And I was just you mentioned Hitchcock, and I think there's a sort of a Hitchcockian element to that motif. Could you talk about that choice?
Yeah, actually, it's funny that you're asking me this, because the costumes was one of the things that was the most important and early. One of the first thing that came to me after the script was thinking about the costumes. It was very, very important, and I remember asking my producer, like, "Look, I need to meet with the costume designer now," and she was like, "That's really early, you know, like maybe you should look for a DP and and I was like, no, I really want to start with the costumes, and so that actually it was almost a fight, because it was really unusual to start with that so early on. And also I remember in French filmmaking, when it's like when it's not a costume film, you know what I mean? We tend to have this approach where the costume should not be seen, where you shouldn't see a costume, you shouldn't think about costume when you're watching a movie, and I don't agree with that. That's what I love, of course, in Hitchcock's movie, where you have these in every movie you have this at least one thing that is, I think there's even a name for it, but I don't know it. But you have one element that's I don't know, that's so important in the movie, you know. And I remember also, you know, for example, in Taxi Driver, the jacket Travis is wearing is something that was very important to me when I watched the movie again and again, because the jacket tells me so much about the character that I don't need to, that no one explains to me, just the jacket, you know? And so I felt like good costume is something that's gonna tell you like unconsciously stuff about the character. And so I wanted for her to have a really, like a red jacket and clothes that would say, look at me, I exist, I'm here. And in the same time, she's suffering from loneliness and from the fact that she's not seen enough, or you know, and that she wants to attract attention. And so that's how I worked, and I wanted like colors that would, yell something, you know. So that's why.
It made me want to go and look for that jacket. I like it very much.
Well, we have it. We can give it to you, because I wouldn't wear it. I've seen it too much.
Matches my wardrobe. Now I think we can open it up to the audience. We have some assistants with mics who will run them to you. I see a hand right here in a red shirt.
Hi, thank you. Congratulations, film was really wonderful. And I'm curious about, in so many ways, it's such an intimate story between two women, and it unfolds around birth, and we see all these other women in these profoundly intimate moments. But then the voiceover and the identification is from a male perspective. And so I'd love to hear you talk a little bit about the choice to intervene on these female relationships with a male voice.
Yeah, so that was a huge question when I was writing the script. And the reason I stuck to Milos having Milos voiceover and telling the story through his voice, and not, for example, through the best friend's voice, Salomé's voice, or through her own voice, was that, to me, it was so important in this story that the man would ask himself, would like think twice. You know, there's the way we follow him being sort of a victim throughout the movie, throughout the present of the movie, and in the same time, it was so important to me that this man would ask himself, was I only a victim? Was I, or did I want actually a little bit to believe this woman? Because, you know, in those trials where there's this woman who's the defendant, there's always, you know, a man in the story who's on the victim side, and who and, you know, for the justice, of course, he's just, you know, the victim. But I felt like fiction and cinema could go further, and I felt it was so important for this character not to leave him just as a victim, but as someone who would reflect. And also, I couldn't believe he would be there at the end if I didn't have him like come back to the story, try to feel what this woman had felt, why this woman did act like that. And even if in the end he doesn't have all the answers, I feel like now he can come because he did this work, and because also the justice did their work, and he can go further than the justice. And to me, it made the character so much more interesting, the Milos character. So for all these reasons, you know, I had lots of, I second guessed this choice so many times, even during the editing. I was, because you're right, it's not easy to tell the story of women and have this male voice all the time. But I feel like also, you know, nowadays we talk a lot about female characters in film, and women directors who direct and write women stories. But I feel like it's so important that they also look at men and try to write them also differently. And so, yeah, that's for all these reasons I stuck to my first instinct.
Hi, I thought it was a great film. I love the scene where she sells the lie and then she dances by herself. I was wondering if you gave the actress any note and what your intention was for the scene?
During the dance?
Yeah, like what did you want us to get out of it when we're watching?
I wanted, in a way, to show that, strangely enough, as she gets deeper into the lie, she feels better, and that she's the lie in a non-moralistic approach. The lie helps her. She's freeing herself from things, and she finds a form of, through this false identity, she becomes more and more herself in a way, and that was the whole direction that I was giving to Hafsia, was that the more you go into the lie, the more there's something true that you can express about yourself, about to this man, but also on your own, in your own apartment. And so that was the whole direction I gave her during the whole movie, the whole evolution of the character.
Just wait for the mic.
Thank you. Thank you.
The script is extraordinary, and I wonder if you could talk a little bit about the inspiration, what came to you, how it came to you. Like, what was the impulse initially? And
yes, so the impulse was, at first, it was a real fact story. How do you say?
True story.
A true story. It was only 2 lines in a newspaper saying a woman borrowed the baby of her best friend and acted as if it was hers. And from that little, it was really like a very small article. And I was very inspired by it, because I thought, there must be a really strong friendship in this story. And I felt like I had seen a lot of movies where we would talk about how a child affects a love relationship, but less how it affects a friendship, which is a kind of love relationship, of course, but different. And so from that point, and also what I loved in the idea was that through the lie, the lie was gonna disturb this friendship and end it, and in the same time, it was maybe gonna start a love story. So there was something that was not black and white, and I really liked that idea, and liked the idea that lie is problematic when suddenly it creates true feelings, true truth. There's truth that comes out of lie, and this is where it's a real big problem, because you cannot get out of it without losing the good that came out of it. So, I started. And the other thing is, so I read this story, and then I thought, I'm not going to look into the story. I'm not going to start trying to meet this person and all that. From that point, I just decided that I would like completely invent very freely. But I had all this background from my work with the trial lawyer and everything, so it helped me a lot. And from there, I think I took a lot of myself in both in the 3 characters, and tried just to invent. And actually, it was really an impulse. The writing went really fast. Whereas I had been writing for a very long time another movie, there was something that just inspired me.
it seemed like the rejections of the 2 men that rejected her, Milos and the boyfriend, were really important.
Exactly, of course. Yeah, completely. And also, I was inspired by a novel that has the almost the same title, called Le Ravissement de l'Olvestein, which is a Marguerite Duras novel. And I think maybe in English it's The Rapture of l'Olvestein, I'm not sure. And there's this same starting point. It's about a woman who is at a ball, and suddenly she sees her fiancé fall madly in love with another woman. And her reaction in this novel is really beautiful, because she's in denial, and she's also, it's not quite denial, she forgets herself. Instead of like falling apart directly, she sees this woman and this man, her fiancé, falling in love with this woman, and she just almost enjoys it, and wants to stay in the ball and watch them love each other. And then during the whole novel, she's completely haunted by this first traumatic event, which becomes traumatic to her, but she doesn't speak about it. There's a silence. And that was really, it inspired me, and it talked to me really profoundly about, how traumatic events work, where you get a bit, there's something happens to you, but you don't directly talk about it directly, you don't cry directly and instantly, and yeah, there's exactly. And so I was looking for that with the first breakup, and how the character moves slowly towards the lie, and how it doesn't suddenly comes out suddenly, you know what I mean? Thank you.
I think we can take one more short question. I see a hand all the way in the back, in the corner there.
Thank you very much. This was a remarkable, 1.5 hours. I won't forget it easily. But 2 questions. The title in English, Rapture, has a sort of extreme religious connotation, like the end of times, when the just will ascend directly to heaven. But maybe you didn't choose the title in English, but we'll pass that by. But you have landed in the land of the happy end. I know it's a word that you use in French too. And at the very end, is it sort of the ambiguous promise of a happy end as they walk together, perhaps into the sunset, happily with tons of children?
That's a good question. I mean, I leave it open, but to me, the happy end is that he's there. The fact that he already came out, and waited for her out of jail is already such a huge step. That, then I don't want to say, I don't know whether they're just going to have coffee and talk, or whether they're going to have many kids together, It's like, it's a form of open happy end. I hope they will stick together, because I feel like if they can overcome this, they can overcome a lot. So I wish them a lot of good, but I couldn't say what's gonna happen. Maybe I should do a Rapture 2, if my producers want to follow me on that. And for the first question, sorry, there was a first question. The title. Yeah, so it's true. It's always really hard to translate a French title, and especially this one, because this one in French is so important, because it has a double meaning. It has the kind of religious aspect, but maybe less strongly, less intensely than what you're saying, where le ravissement is about being, like forgetting yourself, for example, in a moment where you get how do you say s'oublier quoi.
Forget about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, where, for example, in a love story where you meet someone and suddenly you're completely, I don't know, I don't know how you say that you're swept up. Yeah, exactly. And there's this aspect that was so important to me in the movie, for example, in the elevator where she meets him again and suddenly. She's not the one who says the lie first. She's just completely swept up by this look he's giving her, and he thinks she just has the baby in her arms, and he automatically says you're the mother of this baby, and she suddenly like forgets herself and says yes, and then goes into the lie later on. So there's this aspect, and in the same time there's also the le ravissement in French is the kidnapping. So there's really this, and I don't know if the Rapture has this double meaning. We felt maybe it was the closest we could get to it, but I like, in a way, I like the religious aspect because I feel like it does has this thing about a love encounter where you, like a coup de foudre, you know what I mean, or like a. And also in the work of the sage-femme, I have
Midwife.
the work of the midwife. There's traditionally this aspect of there's a religious aspect in this work that I feel is interesting. So I don't know, maybe I don't know.
Well, I think we could keep going, but I unfortunately know that we're out of time. So thank you, Meurisse, so much, and thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you for sticking with me. Thank you.